Everyone wants a good woman, but very few people actually know what that means. Some men chase beauty, some chase attention, some chase the idea of love. And then they wonder why relationships fail, why peace disappears, and why life becomes emotionally exhausting. Today, we are not talking about how to impress a woman. We are talking about how to recognize a good one before it's too late. Because the wrong choice doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your future. Stay with me. A good woman is revealed by her values, not her beauty. Beauty is visible, immediate, and loud. It catches the eye before the mind has time to think. Values, on the other hand, are quiet. They show themselves slowly over time through patterns of behavior, choices made when no one is watching, and reactions during moments of discomfort. Anyone can look appealing when life is easy, when emotions are high, and when attention is being given freely. But values emerge when things are inconvenient, when patience is required, and when personal sacrifice becomes necessary. A woman's values define how she treats people who can do nothing for her, how she speaks when she is upset, and how she carries herself when validation is absent. Beauty can attract, but it cannot sustain. It may open doors, but it cannot build foundations. A woman with strong values understands responsibility, accountability, and emotional restraint. She does not rely on charm to excuse poor behavior, nor does she use her appearance as leverage to avoid growth. Her self-worth is internal, not dependent on constant admiration. She knows who she is even when no one is clapping, and that stability shows in how she makes decisions. When someone has values, they don't change personalities to fit situations. They remain consistent whether they are praised or criticized, desired or ignored. Values become visible in the way she respects boundaries, both her own and others. A good woman does not confuse attention with affection, nor does she chase validation at the cost of dignity. She understands that attraction without respect is empty, and admiration without integrity is meaningless. When conflict arises, her values guide her response. Instead of resorting to manipulation, silence, or emotional punishment, she leans into communication and self-control. This is not because she lacks emotion, but because she has mastered it. Emotional maturity is rooted in values, not looks. Beauty often creates options, but values determine choices. A woman guided by values chooses long-term stability over short-term excitement. She understands that loyalty is not a feeling, but a decision repeated daily. She does not entertain chaos for the sake of thrill, nor does she confuse intensity with depth. Her actions align with her words, and her promises are not shaped by mood. In moments of temptation, values act as an internal compass, quietly steering her away from what feels good in the moment toward what is right in the long run. Over time, beauty fades or becomes familiar, but values deepen. They shape the atmosphere of a relationship, influencing trust, safety, and peace. A woman with strong values contributes emotional stability rather than uncertainty. She does not create confusion to feel desired, nor does she test loyalty through insecurity. Instead, she builds connection through honesty, consistency, and respect. These traits cannot be seen at first glance, but they are felt deeply over time. They determine whether a relationship becomes a source of growth or a source of exhaustion. Ultimately, beauty is an introduction, not a qualification. It may draw attention, but it does not reveal character. Values do. They show up in how a woman loves, how she disagrees, how she commits, and how she remains grounded when life challenges her expectations. A good woman is not defined by how she looks in the mirror, but by the principles she refuses to abandon, even when doing so would be easier. Emotional maturity matters more than emotional attachment because attachment is often driven by fear, dependency, and unresolved inner needs, while maturity is guided by awareness, responsibility, and self-regulation. Emotional attachment can feel intense, consuming, and powerful, but intensity does not equal health. Many people mistake strong emotional pull for deep connection without realizing that attachment can form even in unstable, unsafe, or unbalanced dynamics. Maturity, however, requires the ability to pause, reflect, and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. It is the difference between needing someone to feel whole and choosing someone while already standing on your own emotional ground. Attachment often grows fastest where boundaries are weak. When someone fears abandonment or loneliness, attachment can become a way to escape inner discomfort. This kind of bond is fueled by anxiety rather than trust, and by urgency rather than understanding. Emotional maturity does not rush closeness to avoid emptiness. It allows space, individuality, and patience. A mature person understands that love is not proven through constant reassurance, surveillance, or emotional dependence. Instead, it is shown through respect for autonomy, calm communication, and the ability to tolerate distance without assuming loss or betrayal. When emotional attachment is high but maturity is low, conflict becomes destructive. Small disagreements feel threatening, silence feels like rejection, and independence feels like disloyalty. In these dynamics, emotions control behavior, leading to manipulation, guilt, emotional outbursts, or withdrawal. Emotional maturity brings emotional regulation. It allows someone to experience strong feelings without letting those feelings dictate harmful actions. A mature individual can feel hurt without becoming cruel, feel angry without becoming disrespectful, and feel disappointed without becoming vengeful. This capacity is what sustains long-term connection. Emotional maturity also determines how accountability is handled. Attachment alone often avoids responsibility because losing the bond feels more frightening than acknowledging fault. A mature person can admit mistakes without feeling that their identity or security is threatened. They can apologize without defensiveness and change behavior without resentment. This creates safety, which is far more valuable than intensity. Emotional attachment may keep people together, but emotional maturity determines whether staying together feels stable or suffocating. Another distinction lies in how growth is approached. Attachment resists change when change feels risky. It clings to familiarity, even if that familiarity is painful. Emotional maturity embraces growth, even when it challenges comfort. A mature individual understands that love does not mean stagnation. They encourage development, independence, and self-awareness in themselves and others. They do not feel replaced by growth nor threatened by strength. Instead, they see personal evolution as something that strengthens connection rather than weakens it. Emotional attachment seeks constant closeness to feel secure, while emotional maturity creates security through trust. Trust does not require constant proof. It is built through consistency, transparency, and emotional reliability. A mature person does not test love through jealousy or control. They do not demand emotional labor to soothe insecurities they refuse to address themselves. They understand that a healthy relationship is not two people leaning on each other to avoid falling, but two emotionally grounded individuals choosing to walk side by side. How she handles conflict tells you everything, because conflict strips away performance and reveals character. When things are smooth, almost anyone can appear kind, patient, and understanding. It is in moments of disagreement, frustration, and emotional discomfort that a person's true patterns emerge. Conflict applies pressure, and pressure exposes habits, values, and emotional capacity. The way a woman reacts when she feels misunderstood, challenged, or disappointed speaks louder than how affectionate she is when everything is going her way. Words spoken in anger, silences chosen to punish, and reactions driven by ego all reveal far more than moments of calm ever could. A woman who handles conflict with emotional awareness seeks resolution, not domination. She understands that disagreement is not a threat to connection, but a test of communication. Instead of raising her voice to overpower or withdrawing to gain control, she stays present. She listens even when it is uncomfortable and speaks with the intention to clarify rather than to wound. This does not mean she suppresses her feelings or avoids expressing pain. It means she knows how to express emotions without letting them turn into weapons. Emotional regulation in conflict reflects maturity, self-respect, and respect for the other person. In contrast, unhealthy conflict patterns often hide behind passion or sensitivity. Yelling, sarcasm, personal attacks, or bringing up unrelated past issues are signs that emotions are running the conversation rather than understanding. Some people use tears to avoid accountability, others use silence to create anxiety, and some escalate arguments to regain a sense of power. These responses are not about solving the issue at hand. They are about managing internal insecurity. How someone fights reveals how they cope with stress, disappointment, and perceived loss of control. Conflict also reveals how responsibility is handled. A woman who can reflect on her own role in a disagreement demonstrates accountability. She does not rush to blame or shift fault to protect her ego. She can say, "I was wrong," without feeling diminished. This ability creates emotional safety because it shows that the relationship matters more than winning. Someone who refuses accountability during conflict often prioritizes self-image over connection, making long-term harmony difficult. Another critical element revealed in conflict is respect. Even when angry, a woman's values show in the limits she refuses to cross. Respect is evident when she avoids insults, public humiliation, or sharing private matters with others to gain validation. A person who maintains respect under stress shows that their character is stable, not situational. This consistency builds trust because it reassures that even during difficult moments, dignity will not be sacrificed. Conflict also exposes whether growth is possible. A woman who revisits the same arguments without reflection or change is showing resistance to self-awareness. Growth-oriented individuals use conflict as feedback, adjusting behaviors and improving communication over time. They remember what hurt, not to keep score, but to avoid repeating it. Patterns that improve after conflict indicate emotional intelligence, while patterns that repeat signal stagnation. Ultimately, conflict is not the problem, it is the mirror. It reflects how emotions are managed, how power is perceived, and how deeply respect is rooted. The way a woman handles disagreement reveals whether connection will feel safe or volatile, whether challenges will lead to growth or exhaustion, and whether peace is something she knows how to protect when emotions run high. A good woman adds peace, not pressure, because her presence feels grounding rather than demanding. Peace is not the absence of emotion or challenge, but the absence of unnecessary tension. When someone adds peace to your life, you feel more like yourself, not less. You are not constantly explaining, defending, or adjusting who you are to maintain harmony. A woman who brings peace understands emotional balance. She does not create instability to feel important, nor does she require constant reassurance to feel secure. Her energy allows space for calm, clarity, and mutual respect. Pressure often comes disguised as care. It appears as constant questioning, emotional monitoring, or subtle control framed as concern. A woman who adds pressure makes you feel like love is something you must earn daily through performance, attention, or sacrifice. This kind of dynamic slowly drains emotional resources. Peace, in contrast, is effortless presence. It is the ability to sit in silence without discomfort, to disagree without fear, and to live without the weight of unrealistic expectations. A peaceful partner does not compete with your responsibilities or ambitions. She understands that individual purpose strengthens connection rather than threatens it. A woman who adds peace respects boundaries without interpreting them as rejection. She understands that time apart does not weaken love and that independence is not abandonment. Instead of pressuring you to constantly prove loyalty, she trusts consistency. Her sense of security is internal, not dependent on surveillance or control. This creates an environment where honesty can exist without fear and where vulnerability feels safe rather than risky. Peace grows when emotional safety is present, and emotional safety grows when pressure is absent. Emotional peace also shows in how she responds to stress. Life brings challenges, setbacks, and moments of frustration. A woman who adds peace does not amplify chaos during difficult times. She becomes a source of stability, not additional weight. Her reactions are measured, her communication clear, and her emotions expressed without overwhelming those around her. This does not mean she suppresses her feelings or avoids difficult conversations. It means she knows how to express them without turning every issue into a crisis. Pressure thrives in unpredictability. When moods shift without explanation, when expectations change without communication, and when affection is given and withdrawn as leverage, relationships become exhausting. A peaceful woman is consistent. Her behavior does not depend on attention, validation, or external approval. You know where you stand with her because she does not play emotional games. Consistency creates calm, and calm is the foundation of lasting connection. A woman who adds peace encourages growth without force. She does not push you to become someone else to meet her standards, nor does she shrink herself to be chosen. She supports progress through understanding, patience, and honest feedback. Her presence makes challenges feel manageable rather than overwhelming. In her company, life feels lighter, not because problems disappear, but because they no longer feel heavier than necessary. True peace in a relationship is not dramatic or loud. It is subtle, steady, and deeply reassuring. It shows up in how conflicts de-escalate instead of intensify, how communication feels safe instead of tense, and how love feels like a refuge rather than a responsibility. A good woman does not add urgency to your life. She adds calm, stability, and emotional clarity that allows both people to breathe freely. Consistency is more important than intensity because intensity is often fueled by emotion, novelty, and impulse, while consistency is built on intention, discipline, and reliability. Intense moments can be exciting and deeply emotional, but they are not sustainable on their own. Anyone can show up passionately when feelings are high, when everything feels new, or when the desire to impress is strong. Consistency, however, requires showing up repeatedly, even when motivation fades, when comfort replaces excitement, and when effort feels ordinary. It reflects character more than emotion. Intensity creates peaks, but consistency creates trust. Grand gestures, emotional declarations, and bursts of attention can feel powerful, yet they offer little stability if they disappear just as quickly. A person who is consistent does not need to prove their care through extremes. Their actions speak quietly but clearly over time. You know what to expect, how they will respond, and where you stand. This predictability is not boring, it is safe. Emotional security grows from reliability, not from emotional highs that are followed by long absences or unpredictability. In relationships, intensity without consistency often leads to confusion. One day there is overwhelming affection, constant communication, and strong emotional presence. The next, there is distance, silence, or emotional withdrawal. This push and pull dynamic keeps people emotionally hooked but mentally unsettled. It creates anxiety rather than connection. Consistency removes this instability. It means effort does not depend on mood, stress level, or convenience. Care is expressed steadily, not selectively. Consistency also reveals commitment. Intensity is easy when there is nothing to lose. Consistency is tested when life becomes routine, stressful, or inconvenient. A consistent person maintains respect, effort, and communication even when things are not exciting. They do not disappear during difficult phases or reduce effort once they feel secure. Their behavior remains aligned with their words. Over time, this alignment builds deep trust and emotional safety, which intensity alone can never achieve. Another difference lies in emotional regulation. Intensity often comes with emotional extremes, where joy is overwhelming and conflict is explosive. Consistency reflects emotional balance. It allows space for feelings without letting them control behavior. A consistent individual does not love intensely one day and detach the next. They understand that emotions fluctuate, but values should not. This stability creates a calm emotional environment where both people can relax and be authentic. Long-term connection depends on habits, not highs. Shared routines, reliable communication, and steady support shape the quality of a relationship more than rare moments of passion. Consistency builds a rhythm that makes connection feel natural rather than forced. It allows love to mature beyond excitement into something deeper and more resilient. Intensity may start the story, but consistency is what allows it to continue. Ultimately, intensity impresses, but consistency proves. Intensity captures attention, while consistency earns trust. Intensity feels powerful in the moment, but consistency quietly shapes the future. When someone shows up the same way over time through ease and difficulty, excitement and routine, their presence becomes dependable. That dependability is what turns connection into security, affection into trust, and moments into something lasting. Your standards decide who enters your life because standards act as invisible filters that shape your relationships long before you become aware of them. They determine what you tolerate, what you excuse, and what you walk away from. When standards are unclear or inconsistent, almost anyone can gain access, regardless of whether they align with your values or intentions. This often leads to relationships built on convenience, attraction, or loneliness rather than compatibility. Standards are not about perfection or control. They are about self-respect and clarity. They reflect how you view yourself and what you believe you deserve. Low or undefined standards invite chaos. When boundaries are weak, red flags are reinterpreted as quirks, and discomfort is mistaken for chemistry. People who lack self-awareness or emotional maturity are drawn to spaces where expectations are minimal. Without standards, attention becomes validation, and inconsistency becomes acceptable. Over time, this erodes confidence and creates patterns of disappointment. High standards do not push people away unnecessarily. They simply filter out those who are unwilling or unable to meet them. Standards influence behavior from both sides. When you are clear about what you expect, you naturally communicate differently. You speak with intention, respond with discernment, and make decisions based on alignment rather than emotion. This clarity discourages manipulation and attracts those who value stability and honesty. People who are comfortable with accountability and growth do not feel threatened by standards. They feel reassured by them. It is those who benefit from ambiguity, who resist clear expectations. Another important aspect of standards is consistency. Having standards means applying them even when it is uncomfortable or inconvenient. Many people claim to have standards but abandon them when faced with attraction, fear of loneliness, or emotional attachment. This inconsistency sends mixed signals, not only to others but to yourself. Each time you compromise your values to keep someone, you teach yourself that your needs are negotiable. Strong standards require the courage to walk away from situations that feel wrong, even when staying would be easier. Standards also shape how you are treated. People respond to what is allowed. When disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional unavailability is tolerated, it becomes the norm. Clear standards communicate that certain behaviors are unacceptable, regardless of how much affection or potential exists. This does not guarantee perfect treatment, but it does establish a foundation of mutual respect. Over time, this foundation influences the quality of people who remain in your life.